On Motorsport UK as we look forward to the Ginetta GT4 Supercup. Don't go anywhere.
Here's the grid for round 7 of the Miller Oils Ginetta GT4 Supercup. James Kellett with another pole position. He's won every race so far alongside Aston Miller, Tom Empson and Henry Dawes in the pro element of the G56s. Then Darren Young and Wes Pearce. Colin White in the AM G56s. And then in the older cars, Luke Reed on pole for Wolf Motorsport. Connor Garlick alongside Blake Anglis. And it's James Taylor with Josh Pountin for company. Then Mike Brown and Daniel Morris, Ian Duggan and Luke Wall come next in the older AM class cars. James Townsend and Nick Holstead could do a bit from the back of the grid. Can anybody stop this charge to the championship, quite possibly for 2022, from James Kellett then, because he's won every single point on offer in the races so far. Aston Miller starting alongside in the DTO Motorsport car. Remember, big V8s this year in the front of all of these G56s. Round 7 of the championship here at Knockhill, about to rock and roll. The red lights go on, and it's a good start for Aston Miller to the right of your shot, but it will be James Kellett, by the looks of things, who will lead the gaggle of pro cars for the newer machinery into Duffers Dip for the first time. Henry Dawes, the fourth of those, rather, in the red, blue and white car, and scampering away into the race lead in the AM division for G56s is Wes Pearce in the two-tone car, the pink and blue. Now we go on board with the pole sitter in the G55s, Luke Reed, who's got a face full of Colin White's rear bumper, and Reed with the oval mouth in the front of his car looking up the inside of Colin White. So already we might have a bit of overlap between the G55s and the tail ender in the G56. That didn't quite happen. Remember, much more power available to the G56s, but how much can you utilise it around this up and down track? Not a lot between the top two as they come across the line for the first time, and pressurising James Kellett, or trying to initiate a mistake there, is Aston Miller, but it could be a long wait. All 19 more minutes to go, quite possibly. Luke Reed over the line, 3 abreast by the looks of things for second though in the G55s, and right down the middle is Connor Garlick. He had to have eyes everywhere there because on his inside was Blake Anglis, another one of the pros in G55. Blake's been in the championship for a couple of seasons now, so he's well versed in how to hustle a G55 around this tight and twisty circuit. Hint of some moisture down at Clark's still, but so far so good in terms of grip levels for James Kellett. Not really getting away from the second place car of Aston Miller just yet. And look out for Tom Empson in the white and dark blue car, number 27. He's trying a very different approach into the hairpin to tuck tightly to the white line on the exit. Almost got alongside Miller as they run to the line to complete another lap. And again, his car, Tom Empson's car, looking more manoeuvrable at this phase early on in the race. Plenty of flexing from the bonnet cover as well. And a new fastest lap, unsurprisingly, for Tom Empson, who looks to be the one on the move, third position in this shot. Henry Dawes just out of frame, and leading the AMs in the G56 category is Wes Pearce, who got the jump on Darren Young at the start. Young run by Assetto Motorsport. There's the colours of CWS Engineering, Colin White's car. Now, has the 26 of Luke Reed got in front of Colin yet? No, so we haven't quite got the overlap as we maybe expected on that first lap, with the older cars being quicker than the new V8s, but they will come into their own, the newer cars, as we go further and further into the race, and should become more dominant. There's a tidy little battle developing in the background between Wes Pearce in the blue and pink car and Darren Young, and they're going to be side by side virtually into Duffers Dip. James Kellett massively on the defensive there to fend off Aston Miller, who again will try and get his front wheels level with James's rears as they go into the braking area at McIntyre's. Over the curb, in fact, for Miller at the right-hander at Butcher's, and now they scamper their way through the chicane. Henry Dawes just can't quite hang on to the coattails of Tom Empson, and the top three always running the risk of breaking away here to decide the podium amongst them. Henry Dawes wanting to try and get his head down and not lose sight of this trio as early as he can. Fastest lap as displayed by Aston Miller, although Miller again not getting out of the hairpin as cleanly as the car behind. This was the start for Luke Reed from pole position in the G55s then, and Colin White over to his right-hand side. Colin's car just a fair bit quicker off the road, off the line, because it's a V8 versus a V6, and Colin almost around the outside of Darren Leung. There was a touch, in fact, door handle to door handle, which could have spat Colin White off into the scenery. He controlled it well, and in the end had to settle for third position in the G56s. Wes Pearce up the road a couple of cars to lead the class on this opening lap, and again Luke Reed getting a much better exit out of the chicane as well to virtually draw alongside Colin White, but then had to leap on the anchors into Clark's. Here's the leaders out of the hairpin then, with James Kellett in car number 6, the gold and black nose. Really not much further away than from the second place car of Aston Miller, because Miller keeps setting fastest laps. That's at least the third one he's done so far on the 5th circuit. So clearly Miller has lots of pace to burn this weekend. Just a question of whether he can get in front of James Kellett at any moment. There's going to be a track limits warning this time to Conor Garlick in the G55s, currently running in second position behind Luke Reed in the G55Ps to indicate pro. And the G55 AM class is currently led by car 31, as again, side by side they will go into the hairpin. And Miller to the outside, Kellett to the inside. Still no opportunity to get by, though, that occasion, and this might again play nicely into Tom Empson's hands. Although, as they scrap amongst themselves, they're also carrying really good speed. Very last-minute movement to the outside line at Duffer's Dip. James Kellett had to react to that, and again now is somewhat out of his rhythm. This is the moment that Aston Miller should be pouncing then. He gets a much tidier exit out of McIntyre's. They both clip the curb at Butcher's, but James Kellett done well there because he carried good speed. He was able to always know where Aston Miller was and still stays in front. But Miller's very strong in that first sector of the lap. This short lap at Knockhill separated into 3 individual sectors, and certainly through Duffer's Dip and McIntyre's, visually Aston Miller's car is quicker. Much later on the brakes into the hairpin as well, a squeal of tortured Michelin tyres. He wasn't able to get alongside the race leader and thankfully avoided some contact there. Henry Dawes not entirely out of this, because clearly the top 2 are not going as quick as they might in, say, qualifying, because they're having to react to one another, both Kellett and Miller. They bounce over the curbs this time again, but I'm just puzzled as to why Tom Empson's pace just seems to be slightly lacking again now, after he started like a freight train, but all of a sudden just a couple of car lengths away and not in a position to pounce right now. Might be tending to his tyres mid-race, so he's got a bit more to give in the closing stages. 4th position, Henry Dawes there, creeping over the curb at Clark's corner. Then there's the gap back to the class leader within the G56s, who is still Wes Pearce in the 2-tone livery car, and Darren Leung running in second place in that category, the Assetto Motorsport car that started from pole position in the G55 Pros. Here's the dice, or rather the G56 AMs. This is the G55 Pros, and it is led by Luke Reed, ahead of Conor Garlick, who's already been pinged as a warning for track limits, so needs to be cautious of those, not straying too far off onto shortcutting corners, particularly at McIntyre's, and the run out of the chicane as well. You can use the pit lane exit, as Luke Reed does readily there, bouncing his way through Duffer's Dip, feeling the pressure, I'm sure, from the Union flag liveried Conor Garlick car number 77. Really nothing between them as they head through Butcher's, a kiss of the curb there, and it is no holds barred racing through the chicane as well. That's a brave part of the circuit, because as you commit to it, you can't actually see the apex, you can't see where you're going to be exiting either. And now Conor Garlick gets a face full of gravel as Luke Reed exits the right-hander at Clark's curve. They bounce their way down the railway straight. Luke Reed carrying our camera this weekend for Wolf Motorsport. Looking ahead of that car, though, there's not a lot of competition, because Colin White is disappearing into the distance, as we would expect he would, because he's in a newer class of car, the brand new for 2022 G56 in the AM division. But for the older cars that have been running in this championship for the better part of a decade, there's still plenty of life left in these, as Luke Reed and Conor Garlick are displaying. And Blake Anglis tucked in there in 3rd position. He has for company James Taylor for Team Hard Racing. So 3rd and 4th not yet decided. Update on the race leaders. James Kellett now muscling the fastest lap away from Aston Miller. They head out of the hairpin and over the grid hatchings once again. 11.5 minutes still to go, and plenty of seesawing at the wheel for James Kellett, vaulting the curb there with the second place car of Aston Miller, almost at half distance then. And James Kellett, having dealt with plenty of pressure for the last 5 or 6 minutes, is just starting to relax a little bit more. He has a margin that he can manage quite possibly. Tom Empson again though, too distant for me. He started so well, but has run out of pace, maybe run out of tyres. Tyres are heavily restricted in this championship, and you only get a handful each round as new tyres, and it's really where you deploy those. So maybe the Michelins beneath him have already cried enough. What's happening in the G56 AM division? There's the race leader, car 32, Wes Pearce, ahead of a looming larger in the mirrors, number 22. And that is Darren Leung, who started from pole position. So they switched around pretty much at the start, and Wes Pearce is continuing this strong performance early on Sunday morning here at Knockhill. Conditions more or less perfect. It's a warm day, but there's plenty of cloud cover, which will be helping the engine temperature, helping them to breathe well. Now, Conor Garlick, second in the G55s, making a slight mistake there, kicking up gravel and losing time. Over the rise at the chicane goes Wes Pearce. A little bit closer this time, Darren Leung. Now, Leung starting ahead on the grid. That means that he finished ahead of Wes Pearce in yesterday's race, because the grid was taken directly from Saturday's race result. So Darren's certainly not short of lap speed here at Knockhill. And he's going to close up quite considerably under brakes there as well. So Wes Pearce will have to stay focused in the second half of the race. That job of winning the class, not yet done. Into McIntyre's, James Kellett arriving again, on course well and truly for a 7th win of the season. Now we go on board to hear that fantastic V6 in the older car of Luke Reed for Wolf Motorsport. He leads the pro category within G55, shaping the car up, just almost applying the brake very slightly to balance the car into a tricky corner at Duffer's Dip. And not a car in sight really, just about saw Colin White disappearing over the crest there and the chicane, but otherwise all of the distraction, all of the concentration is about the car behind him, which you can just about see in the central mirror, which is Conor Garlick in the Union flag machine. Now Conor having to be neat and tidy for the rest of the race, stay within the white lines, because he's already had effectively a yellow card to his name regarding track limits, and one further infringement could result in a 5-second in-race penalty, which would help Luke Reed out massively. Conor Garlick though just needing to put that out of his mind and focus on trying to get in front of Luke where possible. But overtaking opportunities around Knockhill are at a premium, and you really have to develop them over several successive corners. James Kellett bumping his way through Hislops and now heavily applying the brake into the hairpin. He's got probably 5 car lengths of an advantage, which amounts to a second as they whip across the line over Aston Miller. And Miller knew that he needed to get the business done early in the race, because as soon as James Kellett gets into his stride, as soon as he gains momentum, he's so difficult to catch and overtake. And Kellett not exactly being able to stroke it home from here, but he's in a very strong position indeed. Neat and tidy stuff. Now there's a bit of traffic ahead, which will be the tail enders in the G55s, I would imagine. So the first car that he will encounter will be Nick Holstead, who didn't finish yesterday's race for Fox Motorsport, and Halstead embroiled in his own battle with Luke Waugh and others. In fact, yeah, there is Luke in the green and orange car, and Nick tucked in behind in the yellow machine. So that's actually a pro G55 car trying to overtake someone from the G55 AM division, Luke Waugh's race car consultants machine. And Luke, at this stage, is on course for a 4th place finish within class, needing to close the gap on Ian Duggan if he wants to finish on the podium within that 4th part of the race. It's effectively 4 races all being held at the same time for 2 generations of Ginetta, and the Ammon pros within that as well. So James Kellett needs to just work his way through here very delicately indeed. It's easy to make a mistake, it's easy to tag an opponent when you don't intend to, but Nick Halstead very gentlemanly driving there, allowing James Kellett through. And he should also do the same for car number 7, Aston Miller. Miller lost very little time there, as did the race leader, and Luke Waugh's going to do the same. So actually, James and Aston finding these back markers in convenient places, to be honest, into the hairpin. It's played nicely into Aston Miller's hands, as now there is a drama in the gravel trap for Blake Anglis, who was running third in his category. Anglis was behind Conor Garlick, if you remember, in the G55 Pros, but he's gone straight on at what is possibly, I was about to say the hairpin, it's not actually, it's McIntyre's. So he's run out of brakes. No, he hasn't. He's run out of air in the tyre, and in fact, Michelin tyre completely on the rear left, which is a strange failure. But I suppose these cars being rear-wheel drive and a clockwise circuit, that is the first tyre that will go bang. And because of the stranded car, because of its location, we're going to have to go safety car. This race is dictated by time, and that's where the tyres got let loose already for Blake Anglis. And suddenly he realises it as well. I'm not sure he did coming through Duffer's Dip, but all of a sudden he tries to turn in at McIntyre's. The rear starts steering as well because it's not on a level playing field, and chucks him into the gravel. So despite instant work and reaction by the marshals to try and recover Blake Anglis's car, with only now a handful of seconds left on the clock, unfortunately there won't be the chance to take a restart in this race. It will come to an end then under safety car, and that will cement yet another win for James Kellett. Aston Miller was eager for a restart. He's even now trying to weave from left to right to build tyre temperature, but as indicated by our graphics, this will be the final lap of the race because of time reasons. And they will race to the line behind the safety car with the lights still flashing, and James Kellett will get his 7th victory of the season, ahead of Aston Miller in second, Tom Empson across the line in third, but a couple of cars back because of those back markers that have been overtaken by James and Aston. Round 7 of the championship here at Knockhill, about to rock and roll. The red lights go on, and it's a good start for Aston Miller to the right of your shot, but it will be James Kellett by the looks of things who will lead the gaggle of pro cars. And look out for Tom Empson in the white and dark blue car, number 27. He's trying a very different approach into the hairpin to tuck tightly to the white line on the exit. Very last minute movement to the outside line at Duffer's Dip. Now there is a drama in the gravel trap for Blake Anglis. He's run out of air in the tyre, and in fact Michelin tyre completely on the rear left. It will come to an end then under safety car, and that will cement yet another win for James Kellett. James Kellett will get his 7th victory of the season. Confirmation of the result then after the safety car. James Kellett winning from Aston Miller, Tom Empson third, Henry Dawes fourth, Wes Pearce wins the G56 amateur class for Brakehill Racing, and Luke Reed another win in the G55 Pros from Conor Garlick. Josh Poulin for Motus One next in 11th. Mike Brown, another G56 AM car in the G55 amateur category, is won by Daniel Morris ahead of James Townsend.
Tom, it was a great race from you, P3 to P3. Got to be happy with that result. You seem absolutely buzzing. You got a smile on your face.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good race. We were battling at the start, but then kind of halfway through it evened out. It's a shame the safety car didn't come in, because I think we could have done something from there. So yeah. Yeah,
I was going to ask you about the safety car because you were close. Do you think you would have been able to challenge the top two?
I mean, we had 2 back markers in front, so we would have to get past them first and then fight for P1, P2. But yeah, I think we could have had an opportunity at least. Yeah.
Another podium for the next race coming up?
Yeah, definitely. Starting P2, so it should be good.
James Kellett extends his winning run and his championship lead. 51 points clear now over Aston Miller. Tom Empson in third from Henry Dawes and Josh Rattican. In the 56 Amateur Drivers' Championship, it's Wes Pearce still leading from Mike Brown and Darren Leung, with Colin White in 4th place. Then on to the G55s, Luke Reed with a 47-point advantage over Blake Anglis and James Taylor. In the 55 Amateurs, Ian Duggan heading Daniel Morris and James Townsend. Very sadly, that's the